Is that meant to be any sound, Suraj, or is this it? Is that meant to be any sound, Suraj, or is this it? All right, guys, we'll see you live in 30 seconds. Okay, welcome everyone to our live stream here with myself, Roger Hamilton, and we also have Wes Christian on here. Hello, Wes.
Hey, Roger, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing very good. Thank you so much for joining us. There's so much going on out there at the moment. So just having a chance for us to be able to give the very latest, I think is awesome. We've got a lot of people in here who are commenting, saying some chat, so please do post some love for Wes in here. And Wes, I tell you where I'd love to start, the Motherlode. We basically have been waiting for a day or two for John Berta to be posting his press release. We know it's coming, like, I think while we're actually speaking together, but he said we can already talk about it, which is basically that there is a number of shareholders who are now taking action. Do you want to just share what's the action that John Berta has taken on MMTLP and what that now means for all of the shareholders?
Yeah, so John Berta, through a company, Flamethrower, has decided to hire our team. Our team, of course, consists of Warshaw Bernstein, our firm, and a bunch of top-notch, experts, economists, other people, regulatory people that have been on our team for some time. And what we're doing is, in essence, doing due diligence on every aspect of this transaction, which started out with Torchlight into Meta, then the preferred A shares, ultimately converting into shares of the private company NextBridge. And I can already tell you, as I alluded to in my conversation with you previously, that I believe we're going to find that this is one of the mother lodes of difference between real shares and counterfeit shares. And so ultimately, I think the press release is going to be issued today regarding them hiring us. Obviously, I can't talk about specifics because that's privileged or anything that we've talked about with the client, but we have been hired, our team is deployed, and we're in the midst of analyzing all this, which I think will be ultimately culminate in one or more lawsuits, and what the nature of those lawsuits is, or nature of those lawsuits are, will ultimately be determined by what evidence we come up with.
Yeah, and just so everyone can see this as well, because there's so many different cases going on, but John just posted 2 minutes ago, not the best kept secret, but see below. You've got here the actual, I think this is part of the actual, sign up of the shareholders being the ones that take the action. And you and I were just talking about this as well. So I'm going to get to this in a second, but let's just go through the fact that for everyone who's familiar with the whole MMTLP case, this is where Series A shares got traded when they shouldn't have got traded. Is where basically in December, the FINRA came in and basically did, a hard stop on the trading. And then basically it's been in limbo ever since. And we haven't been able to actually shift it into the company where it's meant to be shifted. And of course, right, there's all the theories as to why that is, but a very big theory is that there's a lot of naked shorts that are open off the back of this as well. And a lot of people are not aware of the technology that now exists to be able to track and actually get to the actual evidence that the naked shorts are there. I'd love for you to share how this has evolved over time and why you're so much more optimistic now that we can get to this information, and how this leads to really big wins that you've been getting over the years.
Well, ultimately, what's happened over time is ShareIntel has become a key ingredient in this, which is a company that has patented software that at least as it relates to shares through the Depository Trust Corporation, has the ability to do a set of analytics that gives us indications of disparities between real and counterfeit shares. In addition, our team has developed some proprietary technologies that allows us to do a different set of analytics based on looking at various intersections of data. Because don't forget, trading data has many intersections along the way, and ultimately those must reconcile or they're not correct. And so we catch those areas where they don't reconcile and then ultimately drill down on that further. That's just one set of analytics. And then we also look at spoofing issues. We have a different set of analytics on that and different experts on that, which of course is best articulated in the Harrington complaint in New York that Warshaw Bernstein and our firm filed, and then a different complaint by the Cohen Milstein firm on behalf of Northwest Bio, which I'm also a part of. But Cohen and Milstein deserves credit for that complaint, even though some of it came from Harrington. But the detail is overwhelming in both of those complaints on spoofing. And if your audience will recall, the 3 people that just got convicted criminally in Illinois were convicted because of spoofing. I think it was the metals market. And then correspondingly, I think Morgan paid a fine in excess of $900 million, just to give you the scope of that. So as my father used to say, who I lost a couple of years ago, if somebody is paying a $900 million fine, they're not treating somebody right somewhere. So ultimately, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So between the changes in technology, kind of like all technology, different things emerge. Between the information sharing, because what's happened is, Roger, is between what you and Jeremy and other CEOs have started, and John Berta have started, this network of CEOs who are now getting together and sharing data. That combined with what the ape community, the Wall Street Bets community, the super stock community, there's different communities in that Reddit group, if you will, between the network where they're sharing data. For example, shareholders saying, okay, mail in your account statement, how many shares you have at this broker, and let's compare it to what Christian and his group's coming up with, these types of things, common sense things. So what's happened is, there are millions and millions of people that are now with the internet and everything else at a rapid pace, aggregating data and then sharing that with us. So by the time this is all data driven, it's not rocket science. You just have to understand how to read the data and how to cross-check it at these various intersections. And guess what? It just doesn't add up in many cases, okay? So that's a start. And then ultimately that culminates in a detailed complaint, because without a detailed complaint, you're going to get dismissed. So that's really what it's about, is gathering data sufficient to file an action and try to address this and ultimately hold those responsible for the illegal activities.
Right. So here's I'm so new to this. It's been like a week, I believe it is, since we were given permission ourselves to go out there and publicly start talking about this. And so for me, one of the biggest things is looking at an engineering issue of saying, why is it you've got all these people that are unhappy? You've got these institutions and even the regulatory bodies that should be doing something. Why is it not happening? And what we've just seen with what John's done is it's been 4 shareholders coming together saying, we don't need to wait for a CEO, wait for anybody. We'll basically clump the money together for the legal action. We'll take the legal action on behalf of everybody. And then that unlocks it straight away, because now you can go out and take those actions as well. For everybody who's listening, just know this is a possibility right now. As a result of that, you've now got a way to get into FINRA, a way to get into getting the evidence from the brokers that they've been hiding as to what's really been going on. And where's the guy that can actually make that happen? But it still takes costs, right, to build it together. And I really believe there could be more either class action or shareholder-driven suits that can make this happen if they know what steps to take. Let's talk about CEOs though, right? I'm here, I want to take action as well. We just had a board meeting, super exciting stuff that I want to share, but I can't share it without the press release coming out, because that's part of the SEC rules. You've got to tell everyone at the same time. So for CEOs, obviously John's not a CEO now as he was for Torchlight, so he can do this kind of thing, but even he has to wait for the press release. What would you say for the way that CEOs should be communicating differently in this whole social media age, where no one's the guys who are robbing us aren't waiting for the quarterly earnings report to actually do it. They're doing it every single day and everyone's feeling it every day as well. How should CEOs be communicating right now in order for them to be able to actually get in front of get the trust of their shareholders, basically?
Yeah, it's a great question. My partner in this, Alan Pollock at Warshaw Bernstein, did a memo that articulates the fiduciary duty that, frankly, the board owes the company. That duty runs to the company, incidentally, not to shareholders. And that duty includes if the board has reason to believe, using normal and reasonable analytics, that the company is having a fraud perpetrated against it, which in this case is selling shares that aren't authorized, then frankly, they have an affirmative duty to uphold their fiduciary duty to take action. So I think what's happening is more CEOs from our perspective are coming forward and saying, my gosh, we didn't know about this. We have to do something about this. So, kudos to you and your board for moving it to the next level, because that's what you need to do to protect your shareholders and uphold your duty, your fiduciary duty to the company, in your case, Genius. So ultimately, there is a movement about CEOs getting organized here that's going to change that playing field. And that message is going to be sent out to all the other CEOs who are doing nothing. And frankly, shame on them. And if they're doing nothing, then maybe a group of shareholders needs to come in and say, hey, can we pay for these analytics to figure out, do we have a case? And I want to be clear, many companies we've looked at, some of them don't have a case. That's a different issue. But we're able to tell that pretty early on if they don't. So ultimately, it's up to the CEOs who think this is being perpetrated against their company to take action. If not, a group of shareholders to try and take action. But at the end of the day, it's much easier if the company will cooperate. If the company won't cooperate, then frankly, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And I've run into that in many instances. It blows my mind. The company's reaction typically is, well, we can't bite the hand that's feeding us, or we can't go against Wall Street because, my God, if we do, we're going to die. And I'm like, based on what I see, you're going to die anyway. So at least die fighting, if nothing else. So it's a real dilemma because, Wall Street is a powerful force and a powerful, adversary, frankly.
It's super crazy. It's like, yeah, I just get robbed every day. What the heck? I just have to go out, work harder. It's just the maddest thing ever that this is happening. What's really, really like heartwarming is the number of CEOs that have reached out to me. I know that we've got Jeremy Frommer from Created, who's going to be, he just launched, his platform, said, hey, let's just do all this together. So CEO Block just launched, and next Monday we're going to do a live roundtable. It's going to have John Berta on it. It's going to have Jeremy Frommer on it. We bring on Mark Falk and Christina Lay Copeland, who put together Wall Street Conspiracy. Hopefully Dave Lau from the We the Investors can come join as well. Their last interview was with Gary Gensler. Maybe we can do a CEO roundtable with Gary Gensler, and that would be interesting. And of course, you're going to join us then as well, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll be the first to tell you that I've read a couple of times the rule proposals that the SEC came out with. So I applaud Gary for trying to create more transparency and deal with insider trading issues and more disclosure. But unfortunately, none of the rules really deal with what I would consider three crucial issues to stopping this carnage. One, you should only be able to loan a share once, not give multiple locates on the same share. And I don't know how you go about doing that. Maybe it's a watermark, maybe it's a legend, maybe it's something else. I don't know. Secondly, you must deliver what you sell, for God's sake. How can we live in a country where you sell an asset, you get money, and you don't deliver? I mean, the Rob Shapiro's report is crystal clear. 500 million to 1 billion shares per day are not delivered at the time of that report. And that report was done several years ago. But off the record, he seems to think that it's just as bad, if not worse, today. And so how can that be? How can, and I think Charles said it best on Fox Business when he interviewed you yesterday or the day before, I forget when it was, Wall Street needs to quit eating companies and making money at it. That's against what America stands for. That is a black eye on our capital markets, for God's sake. Okay. There are technologies that are getting destroyed. There are jobs that are getting destroyed. There are lives that are getting destroyed. Why would you allow people to make money off of that type of destruction that's based on clearly illegal activity, at least in part? So it's just totally anti-American. It shocks the conscience, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. I think let's talk about the good things that are happening. Right. I think one of the things I've seen happening right now is all these different CEOs are coming together, so they can no longer point to one, which is what happened with like poor Patrick Byrne and Overstock, which is like, well, that guy's obviously crazy, and basically gaslight all of us by saying nothing's actually happening here. Everyone's coming together. One is, you've now got people grouping together and then taking, your knowledge, which goes back decades, and bringing that to the party. And then the other thing is also, the fact that now people know they can actually do that. There's a place to go for that as well. But you're also making inroads into the Department of Justice. Like at the end of the day, FINRA, DTCC, they still are answerable to someone as well. So there's different directions that you can be taking on this. I'd love for you to share, maybe with some of the stuff that you're seeing happening right now. Northwest Bio is one that's right in the action. Created is another one where Jeremy is taking some really interesting actions. You're in the middle of it all, right? So what would you share with those who might be listening that are interested in those kind of those companies right now?
Yeah. So how we look at it is, there's three buckets of really wrongdoing. There's naked short selling. There is lending out more shares than you have, which creates more naked short selling. And then there's spoofing. Now, there's many other forms of manipulation, match trades, wash trades, all that. But Wall Street, from where I sit, has become more sophisticated. So spoofing seems to be, one of the main events, which are these baiting orders that are posted to send a stock a direction. In most of the cases we're looking at, the direction is down. And of course, baiting orders are never real. They're put up there. They're more lies that are perpetrated and posted to induce the investing public to do something based on the reality of those baiting orders, which of course aren't real because they get taken down, throughout the day, if not at the end of the day. So we have a complaint, Harrington in the Southern District of New York, that is passed the motion to dismiss. We just filed an amended complaint. That's ongoing. Cohen Milstein filed the Northwest Bio complaint. That's ongoing, which I'm a part of that. But again, they get credit for where that case is today. And the main, they're the lead lawyer in the case, which is good because we had to increase our bench over time. And incidentally, that's going to increase. We're going to bring more lawyers into the fold here because what's happening is because of this new awareness between CEOs, between the Reddit group, between the cases we have pending and other cases forthcoming, and John Berta now coming on and exposing that. There's a movement, I say, as evidenced by the fact that I've heard, I haven't verified, that there's going to be some kind of march on either New York or DC against, the naked short selling and really Wall Street eating these companies. I think it's sometime in the...
It's next Friday and Saturday, right in front of the SEC. In Washington.
Yeah, well, you know more about it than I do, but that just illustrates the form of the movement. Okay, what's happened is people are getting tired of getting ripped off, and so ultimately, this is going to cause a revolution of some type, a financial revolution, a peaceful protest. I don't know the forms it takes. I'm not involved in any of that. I've got my plate full and just doing the legal part of this with our team. But this movement is growing. It's growing at a rapid pace, and because of that, it's going to create new awareness and shine a light on this, which frankly Wall Street has been successful until recently, until GameStop and AMC in keeping this in the dark. We've settled a bunch of cases along the way. We made progress. I think we're at case number 20 or 21. But that's over 20 years, so it's not misleading to your listeners. But you're going to see the number of cases brought escalate, and it's going to escalate because more lawyers are seeing this is real, more boards are seeing this is real, and frankly, they don't want to get sued by their shareholders, so they're going to take action. At worst case, they're going to take some action to at least look at this and see, is it true? And if it is true, then they're going to be put in a different bucket, which is you need to take action or not. And ultimately, I think most of them will, once we can show them that the evidence is there. Obviously, we're not going to pursue a case if there isn't sufficient evidence. So that movement's ongoing. You got Gary Gensler, who I think is trying to make a difference. Unfortunately, that didn't end up solving any of the problems, as I said. just because, until you eliminate the failure to deliver issue and lending the same share multiple times and allowing naked short selling to exist, especially with bona fide market makers, which I don't know too many of those, to be honest, that I see from where I sit. So you eliminate those issues, then you'll clean this up. But until then, we're going to have to keep fighting and demand accountability to stop this carnage.
Right. And, what's crazy is when you look at something like Northwest Bio, which is really moving forward now, at the same time in what I think was December, when they were saying, we got this issue, and they were pointing at the likes of Citadel, and Citadel was like saying, we got record profits for the year. It's like, well, the whole market's going down. How are you getting record profits if it isn't by like shorting like crazy? And this brings me to my next question, which is, obviously, like I was commenting yesterday, on our Genius shares, we saw like an entire cycle 3 times over of our entire float. So either everyone's buying and selling 3 times, or someone's just selling in fake shares into the market. And so, well, why would they do that if we're being so vocal about this, right? And one of the things that I heard from John Berta when Torchlight was basically merging with Meta was all the shorts all showed up, even though they knew that this was basically being watched, because they go, well, as long as I cover myself before the other shorts cover themselves sometime in the future, then I'm still going to be okay. And at the same time, this may never go to court. So as a result of that, it's just too juicy to think I can basically, with all that volume, just sell fake shares in and make 100% profit off the back of it. So I'm just going to go do it anyway, right? And the fact that they'll be looking for our company at the moment, where some people go, oh, Roger, are you talking about this so people know about your company, so buy? I know I'm becoming a target for the shorts now, right? Because of course they're going to be like, great, let's all come in. But what's so great about the mechanisms is they can't, we're working with you, we're tracking them. When it comes to Judgment Day, where we say, right, now it's special dividend, now we're there, they're going to have to cover. They're going to have to basically find a way to get out of the situation they're in. But that greed is what gets them so motivated to even now say, I can't help myself. I just got to go in there and just make that money. So that whole point about this period between the cash they can get and it's like in my pocket now compared to, I've got to cover maybe sometime later. This is part of what you're talking about at the moment as well. What would you say as to, for anyone out there battling this in terms of patience, in terms of knowing this is not a short fight, it's a long fight to really solve this properly?
Yeah, it is a long fight. And ultimately, you've hit the nail on the head. Wall Street, if you go look at what FINRA has done and what SEC has done and other regulatory agencies, they have fined them multiple times, hundreds of times. But it is a cost of doing business, as one federal judge said in New York in a different case, not our case, a different case. And so, and the same thing with the $900 million fine. How much did Morgan make off of spoofing the metal markets, if that's what it was? I think it was the metals market, precious metals. Then they must have made materially more than the $900-something million fine. And so, as long as they can make more off of this illegal process than they have to pay, then it's still a good business model. So ultimately, once it's exposed, what I anticipate is going to happen is more criminal prosecutions are going to come to bear, and that's really what we need on top of the civil actions we're doing. For the first time in history, they actually prosecuted those people, and I would consider those, officers of Morgan. Not low-level people, some scumbag hedge fund, okay, or some low-level person trader. You see several of those on top of the big firms that have been fined. But those fines are a cost of doing business. So ultimately, it's going to be the criminal prosecutions. It's going to be the number of lawsuits that are brought that ultimately are successful, that aggregate this to where, frankly, the regulatory bodies don't have a choice but to say, oh my heavens, we got to stop this, okay? Or we're going to get lynched, okay? So ultimately, it's exposing the truth of this versus people to say, oh no, it's a minor phenomenon, it's nothing. They've said that for years and years and years. And of course, Dr. Shapiro, Rob Shapiro, to his credit, has stood up and said, oh no, that's just not true. This is systemic. And of course, the SEC and DTC and all of them say, no. But go look at Leslie Bonai's report from, 15, 16 years ago, hired by the SEC, not us. She found major shortcomings back then. So there's data there if you want to look at it. And what's happening now, we're going to bring all that data to the forefront in lawsuits and CEOs aggregating the data. and shareholders aggregating the data and get it out in the public domain. And then ultimately, more people are going to jump on this train. Now we have a revolution of sorts to where it's going to be exposed at such a magnitude that ultimately change will happen. That's my belief.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's really, really great is that there are some ways that companies can make the change happen fast. Other ways they can make it where it takes longer, right? I'll take you 2 examples. While we're going to come up with the actions we're taking tomorrow, but in our case, for example, knowing that special dividend will expose, or brokers have to, that you're turning the brokers against the short sellers because they have to basically now kind of report all they've got to cover. You can do a special dividend, we've got, for example, an entity which is one of our companies, which is listed on another exchange, is worth $37 million. And if we gave that as a special dividend, as an example, right, then everyone basically is benefiting, over $1.50 a share for doing that. But at the same time, you're flushing out all of those short sellers. But that might take several months to do because you're actually going through all the process of doing all of the share transfers. Whereas something like a $10 coupon on every single share, so everyone gets to benefit from basically your company and the good work that you do, that immediately gives someone something they can get straight away. But if some broker has got a couple of million shares that are fake and they don't cover those shares, well, then they're on the hook for $20 million from the people that don't get that coupon and are going to be suing them for that as well. But that can be done within a matter of weeks after an EGM. So just knowing that CEOs sharing this kind of thing with each other and what those steps are, and we'll be sharing, like I said, tomorrow what we're doing. But the fact that there are ways you can actually get there faster, I think bringing these pieces together works very well. You've been watching what Jeremy's doing with Created. He's got a number of things happening, like the $100 million merger, the whole GTI side, but also what he's doing with the idea of the blockchain, listing. What are your thoughts on terms of a couple of the key things that you've seen work best with the companies that you've been working with?
Yeah, so there's several things. One, as I said last time when I talked to you, shareholders need to take their shares out of margin account if they have them in margin. Because don't forget, those agreements allow the broker to lend their shares. Get a confirmation that they're not lending your cash account shares. On the company side, they need to hire, ShareIntel or some other company. I say it's ShareIntel because that's the best in the country, in my view. And in doing so, start tracking your shares and figuring out where they're going. You're on top of it because most of your shares are in lockup. So, the real float is what, 10 million or something in your company.
It's only 5 million right now in terms of the float.
So 5 million. So there you go. So, you shrink that pool, you are able to identify it, a lot easier. It's like trying to find it in Texas, one calf that's on 5,000 acres. Okay. Well, you shrink it down to 3 acres, you can find a calf pretty quick. Okay. So basically that's what you have there. The idea that what John Berta and his group did with Meta and all that, I think is brilliant. Not that that's the reason they did it. Spinning it out into a private company where, the shares are not tradable. I mean, they're not registered, I should say. I guess private shares are tradable, that you can sell them privately, but not registered, et cetera. So how can you short it? So I don't think you can short it, but I guess we're going to be finding the answer to that out in our investigation. So that's important. Look at it this way. Anything you can do, I'm going to use an analogy of a cakewalk at church or synagogue where, it's in the fall, you got a cakewalk like at the fair at the church, and you got 24 people walking around the circle, but there's only 12 chairs. So ultimately, anything the company can do or we can do to stop that music and force everybody to sit down in those 12 chairs is going to expose the 12 people that don't have chairs, which in this case, are shares. So chairs, that's why I was getting confused. So anyway, get it right, Wes, get it right. So the bottom line is that that's in effect, simple version, what the methodology you're employing, John Berta's employing, and others to cause the fake items to float to the top. Because at the end of the day, nobody has the authority to issue shares except the company. Now, you can retrade those authorized shares, of course, but I'm talking about issue them. And I submit when they're selling shares electronically that don't exist and they don't deliver, they are becoming an issuer at some level. And an illegal issuer, which if you did that with $20 bills, you'd be in jail by next Friday, okay? But this is so large and so systemic. How do you deal with it? Well, you deal with it exactly what we're doing now, creating the CEOs, bringing more lawsuits, creating the awareness, aggregating groups of investors to collect data and exposing it to the world. Ultimately, that causes change.
That's so cool. I want to say a big thank you, Wes, because I know you're going to have to head off for your next call.
I have to go in 2 minutes, actually.
Exactly. Just a super quick one to say, come back, see Wes again Monday, same time, 12:30. We're going to actually do a roundtable. Wes is going to be there. John Berta, Jeremy Frommer. We're going to have Mark Falk, Christina Lake Copeland from the Wall Street Conspiracy, and maybe David Lauer after I speak to him this afternoon. I want to say also, everyone listening, like hang in there, right? Like the more I learn about this, the more I realize this is solvable in the long term structurally, but in the short term tactically through the things that we can do with each of the different companies. Wes, any final words for everyone listening?
No, I just echo your same speech. Don't give up. It's not in my blood as a Texan. And ultimately, none of us should get up. Always stand on the side of right, not what's wrong. And ultimately, right prevails. Good prevails over evil. It takes a while for that to happen. Okay.
Thanks so much, Wes. Thanks everyone for listening in. We'll be back on Twitter in one of the spaces there. Really appreciate it. We will catch all of you back on Twitter, and some of you are our partners. We'll see you on our partner conference tomorrow. And then also know that we have got a really, really in-depth, amazing interview with John Berta that we are going to also be sharing this Friday. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. What I'll do, because I know that for a lot of you, you're writing comments in at the moment, I'm going to hold on for a moment because Wes had to jump onto his next call. And I'm just looking at all the different comments that are coming through. Wow, there's loads on here. So really, really appreciate it. Really fantastic having you on here. Please do share this with everyone who is out there, because there are so many people that are just waiting for action to happen. And this is so much bigger than my company or the company you're invested in. It's all of us together with all the companies out there being affected by this right now. Do subscribe to this channel as well, because we're going to be just, you see, if you look back at all the other videos I've had, they've been largely around entrepreneurship and so on, but I'm in this fight now. And so we're going to be posting a lot more about this because this is the most important fight for us, right? This is at the end of the day, the most fundamental key part of our democracy, right? If we can't find a way to make money the honest way and then just get it stolen away, then what kind of society are we living in, right? So I really, really hope that all of you will be sharing, following, and thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. All right, we will cut it there, and we'll catch up with you on our next video. See you later.